Hello, my name is Jordan Wilson. I am the author of the book, Jesus is Greater Than Drugs, The Only War Won by Surrender. I am co-founder of Jesus Ministries Incorporated, and I am the development director of Friends of Sinners, which is a Christ-centered drug rehab in Owensboro, Kentucky. I'm also approaching 8 years clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. I want to talk today about some personality traits that I've always had, how I've used them for bad during addiction, and how I use them for good today on the other side of addiction. I want to start off with my youth before I tell you exactly the personality trait that I'm going to focus on today. I was always into weightlifting. As a young man, I was very thin, and I had this just heavy desire to bench press 300 pounds. So that was not easy for me being so skinny. So what would I do to get there? I would wake up and do protein shakes, have high calorie meals, high protein meals, pre-workout, post-workout, creatine, supplements, and then of course, a ton of protein throughout the day. And eventually I was able to bench press 300 pounds. Fast forward, becoming addicted to drugs, I became addicted to painkillers. And I was a very ambitious drug addict. I wanted to make sure every day that I had enough pain pills to last me all day long due to the fear of drug withdrawal. I would wake up in the morning and boom, get right on the phone. I would send text, I would send calls to get money, whether I had to reach out to family members to borrow money or friends to borrow money. I would reach out to people seeing if I could work and get paid for the day, or reach out to people about future work and getting paid early. Whatever that looked like, I was going to make sure that I did not go without using drugs. I was very ambitious, had a lot of tenacity, still do, and I use it today for good and for the glory of God. When I was addicted to drugs, there was nothing that was going to stop me from getting those drugs. And then of course, when you're doing drugs, you start turning to criminal activity. So if I had to lie, cheat, and steal, I would do these things to get the money. And then of course, once you get the money, you have to find the drugs. You know, I never lived in a very big city, so sometimes drugs were hard to find. So I'd have to find the people that had the drugs or find the people that knew the people that had the drugs. This was not always an easy task. So I was very determined. I was not going to just roll over. If I woke up in the morning without pills and I didn't have any money, I wasn't going to just roll over and accept the withdrawal that I was going to soon have to endure. No, I was going to make the calls. I was going to go to the sketchy places. There would be many times that I would have to park at a gas station and just wait for a car that looked like they might have some drugs. It was very dangerous, but I was bound and determined to do that. Also, when I was in addiction, I started wheeling and dealing. I was selling steroids. When I was selling steroids, I would find out who was into pain pills, and eventually I would start trading steroids for pain pills. I was very good with my words. I was always able to talk myself into a deal or talk myself out of a deal, talk myself out of trouble. When I finally decided to give my life to Christ, to get clean and sober, I went to a program called the Isaiah House in Central Kentucky. I made up my mind that I was going to do this program and I was going to finish this long-term residential program. The first job that they had given me, I had to work, and I had to work for free to pay off part of my treatment. I was on the landscape crew, and I say the landscape crew being generous. Really, I was a glorified weed eater. All day long, I would weed eat. I didn't mow and weed eat, I was just weed eating. It was very tough. I was weed eating schools and chain link fences and graveyards, and I did not like it. However, I was very ambitious, and I was going to be the best weed eater that this program had ever seen. And eventually, after 4 long months, some staff saw something in me. They saw that ambition, that tenacity, and they gave me a job in the case management department. I eventually graduate their program, and I was asked to give a speech at one of their graduations. So I was determined that I am going to write the greatest speech I've ever written. I've always been good at writing short stories and always been good with words. And so now I'm going to use it for good. So I'm going to research and figure out the best, most elegant speech I can ever give. And I did that, not to brag, but it was a good speech. And thankfully, the CEO was in attendance. And after the graduation, he approached me and said that I was going to public relations. Once I got into public relations, I found my niche. I excelled in public relations. I realized, hey, I do have a great personality. I realized that I am a people's person. I realized that I'm not afraid of public speaking. These were all things that I've always had. However, I just used them for the bad. Just like when I was in addiction and I was determined to find the drugs. I was not going to rest until I found the money, till I found the person, till I found the drugs. I had those same qualities. Take out addiction and I used them for my good and for God's glory. Today, I am a published author. And a couple of years ago in my prayer time, I felt God calling me to donate a copy of my book to every jail and prison in the United States. I had no idea how large of a project this would be, but I was determined. I'm ambitious. I have tenacity. Had it back then, still have it today. And so I was going to see this project through. My wife and I crunched the numbers. We learned how much money it would take to do this, learned how many facilities there were in the country. And because of, first, the favor of God, with his help, but also with my determination, with my ambition, tenacity, we finished that project in 5 months' time. My book was shipped to every single jail, prison, and juvenile detention center in the United States, 5,051 facilities. And I felt like God wasn't finished with that project, so we did the same thing for Canada. We shipped a copy of my book to every single jail and prison in Canada. We're currently fundraising to ship the book to every jail and prison in Australia. And the book just got translated to Spanish, so we're going to ship it to every single jail and prison in Mexico after Australia. This is the same ambition. This is the same tenacity that I used in seeking drugs. Now I seek to give God glory, to stay busy and to do good work, to help my family financially, to help the world, to help other addicts get out of addiction and find freedom in Christ. After mailing those books, people were asking if we were a nonprofit, and we decided, let's go ahead and do the paperwork. So now we are a nonprofit. We're going to continue shipping books to every single jail and prison in the world. We're not going to stop. We created a website, JesusIsGreaterThan.org, to where people can partner with us, and we're not going to stop. And so this is the same, right? Like, this is a trait that I've always had. I'm a very ambitious person. I have so much energy. And if I don't get this energy out, right, it feels like I'm going to burst. And so it was the same back then, but now I use it for good. Not only that, as I said before in the beginning, I'm the development director of a Christ-centered drug rehab. Part of my job is I have to deal with people. I've got to make people like me. I've got to make people want to talk to me and want to learn about the program. Once I make people hopefully like me and hopefully love the program, then my goal is for them to partner with us and to donate monthly, to contribute to the work that we're doing. It's very similar. Can you see the similarities between the ambition in addiction and the ambition today? It's the same ambition. It's just being used for God's glory. I could go on and on with different personality traits that I have and many other people have that can be used for bad. I was a salesman. I became a full-time drug dealer where my full-time job was selling 3 different narcotics. It was easy for me to do. I had no problem meeting new people. I had no problem talking my way into a deal. I had no problem dealing with people. Today, I work for a nonprofit. I have no problem talking with people, meeting with people, starting deals, starting partnerships. It's the same trait that I've always had. And it's the same across the board with all people. You know, when I was living in the dark, right, living in sin, I used everything about myself for selfish reasons. But now, I use all the personality traits that I have for good. I hope that I shed just a little bit of light on the situation. Thank you for hearing my story.